do interrupt us if you have questions or concerns as we go through this. And then we're just going to start off with a couple of presentations from different people so we can get started with that. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Jack.
Hi, this is Jack Ewing, the Administrative Code Editor and also lead counsel to the Administrative Rules Review Committee. I just wanted to briefly thank you all for attending and also thank you for your patience in recent months as we have dealt with slowdown in rulemaking due to COVID, evolution of your and our workflows due to working from home. I know that's been challenging, but we appreciate your patience to go through that. For long-time attendees, I will continue to omit the entire 60-year history of the Iowa Administrative Code. You can feel free to reach out to me outside the meeting if you need detailed discussions of every technological development that's happened. I also hope you'll all plan to attend an ex opus training, new rule writing environment we've been working on. There are more sessions of that training than this training this year because that's the main big development we have to roll out. Also, I'll be sticking around for questions as needed throughout the presentation. As Emily said, feel free to put those in the chat, ask questions as we go over. Thanks again for being here.
And I guess we'll turn it over to Christine next from Fiscal. She just has some things to share with you guys.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Christine Meckler, and I am the Fiscal Administrative Rules Coordinator. Just like Jack said, thank you all for being here. We really appreciate all you do. I'm just going to go through a couple of things with you all today, just give you a brief overview of what the Fiscal Division does in this process. As I'm sure Emily will tell you later, there's a couple of handouts that will come out too, so we'll send those out later today. I'll reference those in my presentation, but no worries, you will get those later today. So I'll just start. Iowa Code Section 17.8.4 requires a fiscal impact analysis for all new administrative rules with an annual impact of $100,000 annually or an impact of $500,000 over 5 years. What LSA Fiscal does is we provide a composite analysis document that provides the Administrative Rules Review Committee with an overview of rulemakings with a fiscal impact. In the last year, LSA Fiscal has made some changes to our workflows internally, and we now only provide analysis on rulemakings with a fiscal impact. In the past, we used to provide rulemaking analysis for everyone, or I guess I should say every rule, regardless of fiscal impact. We only provide analysis now for fiscal impact, so that's cut down greatly on the amount of paperwork and the amount of extra work that has to be done here at LSA, and the committee has really appreciated it and really enjoyed it thus far. So you'll probably see too, if you look back in the past, that our composite documents were quite a bit longer than they are now. So as I said before, what we do here at Fiscal is we provide a composite document for the committee, which basically lists all of the fiscal impacts for rulemakings that have a fiscal impact. Individual analysts write rulemakings or summaries thereof based on subject matter, and I, as the coordinator, put together a composite document that I then present to the committee at the beginning of each meeting. The fiscal impact is primarily, as I'm sure you all can guess, it's all primarily based on revenues and cost. Revenues include things like fee increases or tax increases. Costs or expenditures would be, for example, new programs, new new things brought about by any legislation, whether those be one-time costs or continuing costs. For our purposes here, fiscal does not analyze a secondary impact. And what I mean by that is we don't go ahead and analyze anything in terms of effects, certain economic effects. So I know that in the documentation that you are asked to provide, one of the questions is, will there be any job impact? That is something that we consider to be a secondary effect here at LSA Fiscal, so we won't present on that, but I do know from experience that the committee really appreciates that. I just want you to be aware that in terms of us here at Fiscal, we really don't reference that. We primarily reference costs of political entities, primarily the state. However, there are sometimes situations, a great example would be the Department of Education. There's often legislation or rulemaking that implements legislation that has an effect on various parts of a school district, whether that's bus drivers in the school district or area education agencies. Anything like that. If you have that information, we definitely include that, and we do provide the committee with that information. They do appreciate that information and have come to expect it from us. In general, rulemakings themselves do not have a fiscal impact. It's pretty rare. The exception to that is a fee increase. So if there's a fee increase in the rulemaking, for example, for something like the Board of Educational Examiners, or as we had last month with the medical examiner, if there's a fee increase, then the rulemaking itself generally has a fiscal impact. Otherwise, it's rare that a rulemaking has fiscal impact. As I mentioned before, it's generally the legislation that's associated with the fiscal impact that's associated with a rulemaking that has some sort of fiscal impact, and that's what we have been asked to reference by the committee. So that's something that we are always sure to put into our analysis. With that information, then LSA provides, or LSA Fiscal provides, a response to the agency's analysis. So as I'm sure you'll go through later, you'll go through the rule management system and what information that you provide. And the LSA has a portal of their own that we use. The rule management system feeds into that portal, and we access that portal to get information to make our analysis. We look at what you send us. I know this sounds pretty frank, but in terms of what you put in, that's what we use. So we ask that you provide as much information as possible. Things like updates, website addresses, things like that. You don't necessarily have to be super proficient in that. You don't necessarily have to be very explanatory in that, but we do ask otherwise that you provide sufficient information. We look at that information. We have access to the preamble of the rulemaking, the actual rulemaking, and the public hearing information. We also have a tool that allows us to compare notice of intended action filings as well as adopted and filed filings. So we can take a look to see what's changed, but we do appreciate it if there are significant changes that you reference that as well. We look at that information and then we craft an LSA response. There are three possible responses that we use, whether that would be the LSA concurs, the LSA does not concur, and the LSA concurs in part. At this point, as I've done in the past, I just really would like to underscore that this is a collaborative effort. This is certainly something that the analysts and the agency should work on together. It certainly is never meant to be something that causes any sort of disagreement. If the LSA says they don't occur or only concur in part, that's never meant to be any sort of gotcha moment for the agency. Sometimes there are variances in interpretation. There are variances in the information that's been received. I tell all the analysts that if there is variances in their information, if they interpret something differently than the agency does, to contact the agency and attempt to be on the same page so there are no surprises or no concerns that arise at the meeting. Again, just want to underscore that that's not by any means anything personal, and just encourage working together. I do have a sheet that will provide the analyst who is responsible for the subject matter as well as their email and contact information, so that it will be a resource for you to reach out to an analyst as well. And then we also have your contact information in our portal, so as I mentioned before, encourage my analysts to reach out to you should there be questions. We basically go through our portal and craft a response to the information that we have. Again, as I said, it's a collaborative effort. We all try to be on the same page. Sometimes it just doesn't work, but we try to work together as much as possible. I am always available for contact too. My contact information is also on that sheet. So if you ever have any questions, can't get a hold of your analyst, or something else is concerning to you, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm here as a resource for you. And once again, thank you for all that you do. We appreciate it. We know this is a sometimes very time-intensive job, so thank you for all that you do.
Anna was hoping that you could maybe go over a little bit about what you expect to see in this section in RMS. That's a question they get quite frequently.
Yeah, so if
No, the one she was asking was implementing legislation.
yeah, that's a great question. So we can see on your screen, it references the contact person. So I'm not quite sure.
Oh, that's not for you.
That's not for me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I honestly don't. This is
Okay.
for the agencies, and I don't really have access to this part. But the next section references impact criteria, and that more or less discusses what we see when you put in terms of whether there's fiscal impact, whether it's less than the statutory requirement to write a rulemaking summary, if it can't be determined, or if there's more, or I guess if it statutorily applies. The next section that you'll see is legislation appropriation associated with rulemaking.
That's what she wanted to talk about.
Okay, so that's what I referenced before. Again, generally rulemakings themselves don't have a fiscal impact, but there's almost always this legislation associated with a rulemaking. So what we've provided for you here is 3 options here, whether a code section or code chapter has been updated, whether it was session legislation in Iowa Acts or whether it's federal legislation. And we go back, it looks like we go back about 3 years for general assemblies. And we ask you to reference the legislation that's associated with the change in the rulemaking. Off the top of my head, an example of this would be, I believe, 2 years back, the legislature approved sports betting. So an example of that would be if you were the Racing and Gaming Commission and you needed to implement rules regarding sports betting, you would go ahead and you would select Iowa Acts. 2 years back would be the 88th General Assembly, and then you would select the legislation that approved sports betting, which off the top of my head, I can't remember. I'm sorry.
Of course not.
But that would be what you would reference in there. In terms of like a brief explanation, really, the analyst should know as well, especially if it's a specific situation like sports betting, where specifically a piece of legislation, most likely that we've also written the fiscal note for, that's associated with that. If you could provide a brief explanation as to what this does. So in the same example for the Racing and Gaming Commission, something such as implements the process for background checks for casino employees would be a good explanation of what that rulemaking does in terms of how it's related to that appropriation, that legislation. If you have a longer explanation as well, absolutely update that. We get access to all of that and we do read it. Again, more information, the better. But if you have ever had any specific questions about fiscal impact, whether, you're just not sure whether it applies or not, or whether it can be determined, often what can happen too, with the rulemaking process. The rulemaking process takes time, and there's a lot of things like international pandemics that can happen. So often rulemakings can come quite a bit after the legislation was actually enacted. And sometimes what that means, I actually just recently had an example of this. The information that was originally stated as a cost in the fiscal note doesn't match what the information is that's available to the department now. So it's very possible that that information could change. So providing that information, uploading that explanation and saying, we have received additional information since the legislation was enacted, XYZ has changed. We're going to have to use money from different resources, or we're going to have to use money from elsewhere. So the cost is only going to be these many $1,000s, something like that. Or if you could say, we got a grant in between the time there was a grant received and we now have $50,000. So the cost is only going to be $100,000. Things like that are very helpful, because we often, especially in the interim, things happen and communications change. And so we often don't always have the same amount of information available. Again, that's something I encourage all the analysts to do, is to remain in contact with you. And in that situation that I just referenced, that wasn't the case. We went back and we talked to the agency and said, what's changed? But that is something that would be great to, provide in that brief explanation area, or also upload.
Thank you, Christine. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Michael Bohl from the governor's office. He's just going to talk briefly about the governor's office portion of the rulemaking process. Michael, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks for having us at this training, and thanks to everybody's work. I'll kind of echo what everyone else said. This is a hard process, and we know a lot of people put a lot of time and effort into them. So the governor's office, similarly, and the governor appreciates that. The governor sees rulemaking as a priority. She finds it really important, and our office, I think, reflects the amount of time and importance in the staff time that we put in to review these rules. So big picture, just like to discuss two thoughts with you. The first is just our general process and how we are looking at the rules. So we do devote a lot of time to these, but there is still a lot else going on, especially in COVID era. So in terms of rules kind of getting turned around timelines-wise, we do expect a week notice before the filing deadline so that we can have time to review the rule and get any questions answered from you all. So a week before the notice submission deadline is when we expect it to be filed on the legislature's website. If it's a big rule or a big policy area, or if there's approval that's needed by a board or commission before that deadline, you may want to go even earlier than a week. Just kind of plan accordingly depending on what's going on. And don't hesitate to give us a call or give me a call if it's a bigger deal rule and there's going to be more discussion on that before it's put through the filing process. Obviously, communication is key on any of these rules. So once it comes in and once it's been filed, it's looked at by both legal and by the policy advisor. So the policy advisor may be reaching out with questions about, what's in the rule, what's not in the rule, whether it's a good idea, all the same things that you're debating and discussing before it gets in the final rules process may be the same things that the governor's policy advisor will be asking. So we just want to have a good understanding of what's in there. And from the legal side, what we're looking at is the same things that you've discussed, I'm sure, too. Is there authority to do the rule? Do we need to do a rule on this, or is this something that is already being done, or the statute dictates? And less or so, but to a extent, we're also looking at are we just duplicating the how is the rule written? Are we just duplicating what's in the statute? Is that needed for purposes of how your agency's rules are put together? And just some concerns, for example, if we're just adopting a new version of a particular set of standards, knowing what is in those new standards, not just saying we're updating from 2018 to 2020, but substantively what is that? So we may have questions for you once it's been filed and before it's assigned a number, and those are the things that we're just trying to get a better understanding of what we've got in that rule. So as soon as that review is done, then it's assigned an ARC number through the Administrative Rules Coordinator, right now Sam Langholtz, and that's kind of process-wise what we do. The other thing I just emphasize, aside from our process, is communication, which I alluded to earlier. Whether it's with other state agencies, whether it's with stakeholders who you know that will be interested in the rule, and then with our office as well. I would say never hesitate to, just pick up the phone and explain what's going on, especially with us. If you know something will be an issue, just pick up the phone and give us a call. There may be roadblocks and hiccups down the line, but just knowing what's going on, knowing the dynamic earlier is always better. There's also been a request from ARC that we have agreed to as well, ARC committee members, to contact the bill managers. If you're implementing new legislation, contact the bill managers and just see if what you're doing generally tracks with what they're doing. I think that's, generally speaking, a good practice, just to make sure that the legislator is on the right page, that we are on the same page as the author of the legislation, or members of the ARC committee too, kind of using your best sense to see who's the best person to reach out to, what legislator is going to care about this issue the most, or have the most input. Never hurts to get their input for sure, and that's something that we have agreed with ARC members that can be a good idea. So, like I said, communication is key, and that's a little bit of our process. I don't have anything else too specific, but again, I echo the appreciation for the work that you do. Look forward to working with everyone, and I am happy to answer any questions that you have, or in the chat or whatever is the way to do it.
Does anyone have any questions for Michael before he leaves the chat? I'll let you type for a second. All right. Well, I'm sure Michael would say the same. If you have any questions, of course, you can always reach out to the governor's office at a later time. But we're going to go ahead and say goodbye to Michael, and we'll turn it over to Hannah Bassett from the Publications Editing Office, formerly Administrative Code Office. Hannah, did you want to go through some of the tools and handouts that are posted on the website really quickly?
Sure. Do you want to go through the Rule Writer Toolkit?
That's what I was thinking, yes.
So first of all, my name is Hannah, and I'm an assistant editor in the Publications Editing Office. We work with rule writers in the 2-week publication cycle, but we also are available for questions at any time. If you're working on our rulemaking and you have questions, feel free to call or email a draft. We're always happy to help. On this Rule Writer Toolkit page, you'll find lots of useful tools while you're writing rules. At the top is our 2020 and 2021 schedule for rulemaking. So this is the schedule we follow for publication and submission of documents. All the bolded dates are early submission deadlines. And if you have any questions about interpreting this, you can either give us a call, or we have a little calculator tool on our website that's also pretty convenient. Right here. So here you can enter in dates of when you publish the notice, and it will fill in all the earliest dates. So if you have a question about maybe doing something later than the earliest date, that's when it would be probably helpful to call us. Otherwise, this is really helpful for following straight across the rulemaking schedule. And again, here you can enter the date that you want your rulemaking to become effective, and it will sort of backfill all the other dates that you need to meet in order to get that effective date. So back here we have the rule writing style guide. Oh yeah, rulemaking guide and the rule writing style guide. They're both going to be helpful for background information and kind of a deep look into the process. Our style guide's a little bit out of date. We're working on updating this, but it's still helpful for knowing terms and things. The preambles have definitely changed since we started RMS, so a lot of that is pretty outdated. These next few items might be really helpful while you're drafting. This is a parts of a rule document that shows what each part of a rule is called and how the rule is structured, so you know the hierarchy and how it should look. And the RMS checklist is a quick guide at everything you might need to do before submitting a document in RMS, and a little instructions on how to do each step. Same thing here is another checklist. This is before you're probably working in RMS while you're getting the document ready. Just some things to keep in mind, like striking before underscoring, strike whole words, underscore whole words, things like that. The next is the template, which we don't use too much anymore, and part of that is because we're working on that new Ex Opus drafting tool for the training later today. But this is still a good way to pull in existing Iowa administrative code text and amend it in the meantime. This page is especially where you want to go when you have a file document and you're looking for the published notice. So you can search by publication date, when your notice was published. And then on the right, you can click the RTF button to get an RTF of the notice, and that's what we ask you use to build a file document. This next one is the uniform rules. So all agencies have these rules, and again, this is kind of outdated. I think this is from 98 or 99, but still useful. All agencies still have these rules, although some of them are working on updating them. The Iowa Administrative Procedure Act, so 17A is where we get our authority and where rulemaking authority in general is. Useful, especially if you're filing a double barrel where you need to find what Iowa Code section is relevant for why you're able to submit a double barrel, an emergency rulemaking. Oh, and this is the rules tracker. This is super handy. You can search by date, by agency, or by ARC number. I often find that searching by agency is most helpful. You can look at your own agency past rulemakings to get kind of an example of what language has been used and what they look like. You can look at the notice, the filed, if there's hearing information, all of that is available.
And that's everything in the toolkit. Did you have anything that you were going to distribute after class? We're going to send out an email to all of you participants with the handouts provided. So I have some from Fiscal. I have some that I'm going to pass out. I know Hannah's are mostly posted on the website. Did you have anything else you wanted to add here, Hannah?
I think most of the tools that we recommend are on the website. I'll take a look and see if there's anything, but pretty much all the tools on this Rule Writer Toolkit are going to be really helpful while you're drafting rules.
Absolutely. And I'll go through some of these a little bit more in depth when we get into the training. All right. Thank you, Hannah.
Thanks.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and take over, and we're going to talk about and just go through the website and hit on some of the tools that I think are most useful for you guys. What we've done on our website is kind of try to put all of the tools that we think you guys will use in one place. So if you go to our legislative website, which is just legis.iowa.gov, you're going to go to our Iowa Law and Rules tab along the top. And then over here along the left, you're going to go to the one that's called Iowa Administrative Rules. And this is basically where we keep all of the information relating to rules, and relating to the code, the administrative code and the bulletin as well. So the first thing you'll see on this page are a couple of quick finds over here along the right. These are different quick finds than you find on the home page. And again, these are just mostly related to the administrative code as opposed to legislation or keyword searches or acts like we have on the home page. So these are very straightforward, pretty easy to use. In this field here, kind of grayed out with this EG, kind of gives you an example of the format to use for this tool. So if I just use the example given, it's just going to be agency.chapter.rule. You can go to the chapter level or the rule level, up to you. And then if you hit enter or that magnifying glass on your, or sorry, if you hit enter on your keyboard or that magnifying glass, what it will do is it will pull up a nice printer-friendly PDF version of the most recent version of that administrative code section for you in a new tab. So because I opened up in a new tab, it's very quick to get back to where I was. I simply close that tab, and now I'm back to this page. Also throughout our website, if you see these little YouTube play icons, these will just launch a very quick 5 to 8 minute video on how to use whatever tool that's next to. So in this case, if you get back to your desk and you forgot what I said, you want to know how to use this tool, you can simply click on this play icon. It'll open up a YouTube video with instructions on how to use this tool. One thing to point out with these quick finds is that you do want to have your pop-up blocker turned off for our site. A lot of the tools on our website work with pop-ups. We're not trying to spam you. We're not trying to put anything bad on your machine. So go ahead and allow pop-ups on our site to take advantage of some of this functionality. The next one down allows you to quickly get to a rulemaking document. I'm just going to, again, use the example given, which is 1000C. I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard. And again, it's just going to pull up the most current version of that ARC for you in a nice PDF printer-friendly format. It is going to open up in a new tab again. I'm just going to close that tab to return to the page. And lastly, over here, we have the agency chapter or rule by publication and effective dates. Same format that you would use in the first quick find. You're just going to put in your agency.chapter.rule, hit enter. And what it will do is it will pull up our administrative rules shown by effective date page, but it will go ahead and fill in the information that you just entered. So because I entered agency 11, it's put that in the first dropdown, chapter 1 in the second, and rule 1 in the third. Again, it just goes off of what I put into this quick search right here. But that being said, if you want to change what you're looking at on this page, it's as simple as using the dropdowns provided to change the agency chapter or rule that you're looking at. If you prefer to type it in instead, the quick find follows you to this page. It's in the lower left. So if you want to instead type something along these lines, again, when you hit enter on your keyboard, it will go ahead and fill in those drop downs based on what you entered in this particular field right here. So lots of good information here. It does link the administrative code as well as the bulletins. Click on those to pull up that content. It'll give you the adopted rulemaking, again, linked content here, the subject of the rulemaking, and then it does have the data available in both a PDF, which is just a printer-friendly version, or an RTF. RTF is rich text format. It's just another way of saying that it will drop the text into a Word document for you. And again, this is a great place to start with your rulemakings because this is always going to be the most current, depending on what you're looking at from those drop-downs. I'm going to go ahead and go back. Throughout our website, you'll also see what are called breadcrumbs, and this kind of gives you the trail that I took to get to this position on the website. So from the home page, I went to the Iowa Law and Rules tab, I clicked on Iowa Administrative Rules, and then I was taken to this page here. So you can either click the back button, or you can click a breadcrumb to go back, or you can click the left nav on the left. A lot of different ways to do the same things here. There's a quick link over here along the right as well to the rules tracker, which Hannah discussed briefly. This basically takes you through everything a rule goes through from the notice all the way through the publication date. By default, it's going to show you the last 3 months here. You can change this date range and update it however you wish. If you choose a start date, it's going to leave the end date the same. So you'll just want to make sure that you update both of those fields so that you get the content that you want. This does update dynamically in real time. So as some of these things are published, as it goes through the process, these links will insert. So that's why I've gone back a few months, just so you can see that the table has filled in significantly as opposed to what you see right now. So all of this is linked. Again, you have links to the agency, links to the ARCs, links to the notice of intended action of the bulletin. Any public hearing information is linked. You can see the agenda and the minutes from the ARC review committee. The adopted rulemakings are linked here. The agenda, again, for the adopted rulemaking and the ARC review. All of this information is available for you by just clicking on the links that you would like. This is also in print, it's also available in print format. So if you click on that little print button right above the table, you can print this information. And also throughout our website, for the most part, you're going to see a print link up here right underneath the tabs that allow you to quickly print off whatever you see on the screen. So if you ever need to quickly print content, you can do so. We'll go back to where we just were. And the last thing that you'll see on the administrative rules page over along the right is the legislative document research tool. This is the big search engine on our website. And it basically is the best way to find not only current but archived content. What we've done is we've kind of tried to structure it according to the tabs along the top. So you'll see that the tabs along the top kind of mirror the search within section here. Many, many different ways to use this tool. We do have instructional videos now posted. Again, these are just brief 5 to 8 minute videos that kind of walk you through how to use the tool, how to use the search, how to use the advanced search, the topic search, etc. So if you'd prefer to watch a video, this allows you to do that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because, again, we have all of these resources out here for your use. But I'm just going to cover a couple of quick things. So the first thing basically you can do is to simply type in a word or words. By default, it is going to show you current content only, and it's going to exclude all reserved chapters. There's really no reason I can think of that you'd want to uncheck to include reserved chapters, but it's an option. So what you'll do is you'll type in your keyword. By default, it is going to search everything on our website. If you want to limit your search to just a specific section, so for example, if you guys only care about the Iowa Administrative Code, you can type in your keyword, check the box next to what you want to search here. And as you can see, it'll give you the number of results found. So instead of, in this case, searching everything, it's just gone ahead and searched everything relating to safety within the Iowa Administrative Code. And in this case, we have about 2,653 results. That's what the number next to that indicates is the number of results that have been found. And then the results display over here in the right pane, you will see that every instance of the word that you've typed, this keyword safety, is going to be highlighted within each result. So you can kind of quickly see if this is what you're looking for. We know this is a lot of content to go through, so there are additional ways to narrow down your search. It's hard to see on the screen, so I apologize, but there are little arrows in front of each one of these check boxes, and that allows you to expand down. So what I mean by that, if I click on the arrow next to the Iowa Administrative Code, you see that it kind of shows me now how many results it found in each one of these agencies. So if you're looking for a particular agency, it's much quicker to come in and say, okay, I'm looking for just the ones related to the Attorney General. Now I only have 12 results to go through. Another question we get a lot at the help desk is, especially with different monitors and different resolutions, sometimes this information gets cut off and it's not particularly useful. Do want to point out that if you hover over the border here, you can see that my cursor changes to this double arrow. I can drag this out. So I can set how I want this to look and not have this cut off by just clicking and dragging this in or out however I feel I want to see that. Again, there are little arrows, and every time there's an arrow in front of something that indicates that you can expand down further. So within the Attorney General, for example, if I hit the arrow, it's going to expand down to the chapter level and tell me how many results it found in each chapter. If there's an arrow in front of the chapter, I can expand down to the rule level. Once you get to a point where there are no longer arrows in front of everything, that just means that that is as far down as you can go with the content. And then you can kind of follow the process that I took here. I just kind of drilled down from Iowa law and rules, then I went into the administrative code, then I went into the Attorney General, and then I went into the chapter level. Within the chapter 9, I went into the rule level. So if I were to click on one of these ones down here at the rule level, you'll see, and of course, it's going to do. I have a habit of choosing like the absolute worst examples to show, so apologies for that. But the idea is that when you click on something, it's just going to pull up that one result that you're interested in. You click on the linked result, to pull up the full content here. It is going to be in a web-based text right here. There is an option to pull that up in a PDF. So if you want a printer-friendly version or a PDF version of this information, you simply click on that icon and it will put it in that proper format for you. Again, sorry. I'm gonna go back and it's kind of blocking me up here with, there it goes. I was gonna say, it just, if you just give it a second, but I'm not impatient. So, as I mentioned before, again, it does take you to a new tab. So to get out of that, it's actually being blocked right now by the top. So I'm just gonna go ahead and click the tab back here to take you back. There is also a little icon in front of each one of the results. So again, depending on the type of document that you're looking at, there are different format options available. This one comes in PDF and RTF. You simply click on the one you want to drop the content into that particular format. So that's pretty straightforward. You can either drill down to the information or type in a quick keyword to pull up the results here. Again, anytime you click on a result, it is going to open in a separate tab. We did that because a lot of times you're not quite sure what you're going to be clicking on, and you're pulling up the result to see if it's what you're looking for. So by pulling it up in a new tab, you can see if it's what you want, very quickly close the tab and not navigate away from your search results. So if there were more search results here, I could continue clicking throughout without losing that. They are sorted depending on what you're looking at, usually by best match or by most current. You can change the sort order using this drop down here at the top. By default, it is going to show you 10 results per page. If you want to see more or less results, or sorry, just more results, you can change that using the drop down provided. And then the one that I always make sure that I point out is this generate link option. This becomes very handy, especially for legislators who are contacted maybe by a constituent who's interested in a particular code section or rule. The legislator can go in, or a lot of times as the webmaster, I'll go in if somebody says, I can't find what I'm looking for. This allows you to basically run the search, find the results that you want, and then I can hit this generate link button here, and it will create a URL for me to email to someone, to put on a website, and it will then pull up the search results exactly. So rather than giving the person instructions saying, go to the legislative document research tool, type in the word safety, on the left, check the box for the Iowa Administrative Code, we know those are a lot of steps. So by clicking this generate link and just copying and pasting this URL into an email or a message to someone, they can click this link and automatically get to these search results without having to run the search again. So I find that to be a really handy tool. There are some additional tabs up here along the top. The advanced search tab gives some additional options here on different keyword searches. Another thing that you'll notice, the first one here is a topic search. There was a big project by LSA several years ago that basically we went through and we tagged everything with the same indexing taxonomy. So now what you can do is, and this is especially useful for members of the public who maybe are interested in a particular subject, but they don't know the code sections that are related to the subject. They don't know the legislation that's related to the subject. So what they can do is come in here, click on a topic, and absentee voting, that's been a big topic recently. So if you choose the topic here and hit search, this will go through. And again, I have a habit of choosing absolute worst example. It works when I'm at my desk. Apologies on that. But here, the topic search will allow you to come in, and let me just pick a different topic. Will allow you to come in. I know I was here on the advanced search and topic here. There's also a topic search up here on the top. They function exactly the same, except that this one allows you to see your results on the same page, whereas this one would take you back to the main search and display your results on that page. So what this does is essentially, like I said, I've clicked on the topic of abandoned property, and it gives me everything relating to that topic. So I can see all of the legislation relating to that topic, all of the code relating to that topic, the acts, the administrative code, any rulemaking documents. So all I have to do is choose a topic and get all of the publications, legislation, and information that goes along with that topic. There is also a list of letters going along the side here. And the reason for that is, as you can imagine, this is an extremely long list of topics that we have. This isn't something where you can just type in a topic and say, I'm looking for police, and type in that word. No, you do actually have to choose one of the topics that we've tagged our stuff with. There is also a predictive text option. So if I start typing a word, It will function a lot like Google and kind of try to guess what I'm looking for. I can then choose what I want from the drop down here, and that's another way that I can also select a topic. And then there are a lot of see also terms. So under the topic of education, as you can imagine, there are many subcategories and subtopics. This allows you to choose a see also term and then see the results for that see also term. One question that we do get quite frequently at the help desk is, okay, it says there are 267 documents for legislation, but I only see 3. This is just our effort to kind of limit the amount of scrolling you do. We know a lot of times people are using iPads or phones, and it becomes really tedious to scroll. So this is our way of just kind of limiting the amount of results you see in each topic. If you want to see all 267 documents that are legislation, you simply click that link. And now as you see, as I scroll down here, I can see all of the legislation relating to that. So the topic search is a very useful tool. As I said, if you're not sure what you're looking for, you just want to see everything relating to a specific topic, this is very handy. And then on the advanced search, we also have just some additional keyword options. These all function the same on the main search tab, but some people prefer to see it. I want to type in an exact phrase or one or more words or words near each other. This absolutely allows you to do that. So you just type in the word, and then what you'll do after you've entered your search criteria is just hit that search button. You'll be returned to the main search page to see all of your results. One thing about exact phrase I always point out is that it's not kind of a little false advertising on exact phrase. It does operate on what we call stemming. So that means I can type in the word fish. I'm not just going to get legislation or anything related to the word fish. I'll get fishing, fishermen, anything with that root word is going to populate as a result. So you don't have to worry about getting the verb tense exactly right. You just type in the main word and it will go ahead and find every instance of that word for you in your search results. Over along the right here are some additional search options. You can search the Iowa code, type in a code section. It will show you all of the code that's affected by bills. You can type in a sponsor. This is only for bills and amendments, but if you have a legislator that you're interested in, you can type in the legislator name here, find all of the bills and amendments that they have sponsored. There's an author search. This is mostly for publications. Most people don't use this, but staff does. If you know who the author of a document is, you can search that way. There's also the way to search by departments here. You can type in a department name and search for that. And then there's a budget unit search. Unless you're fiscal staff, you probably don't know the budget units. It is a search option, but it's probably not one you use often. So again, what I would do if I wanted to run my search, I would, in this case, let's pretend I'm picking a topic. I could enter in any additional search criteria that I wanted. In this case, on the advanced search, the current only and exclude reserved are not checked by default. So I would just want to check those if that's what I wanted before I hit my run search button. And then again, by default, it is going to search everything. If I wanted to limit my search results, I would simply check the box maybe next to administrative code before I run my search, hit search. And in this case, it didn't find anything for me, but it would show me just those results. The search tools, the only reason I point this out is there are written instructions on using the tool here. It is going to pop up automatically, but it's under this documentation here. So if you prefer to read and follow along with screenshots how to use the tool, this will allow you to do that. We do update this every year, so it should be current for you. Couple of just keyword versus topic, query syntax. The other one I point out here is this document type available. This shows all of the different formats for the different types of documents that are found in our search engine here. So sometimes people say, you know, what format is the code available in? This kind of shows you what formats those are available in. And then there's a disclaimer here, which is just some legal jargon that we have to post. Lastly, when you first come into the legislative document research tool, and I'm not going to click on this because I know they're working on it right now, there's a category search. Categories and topics are very similar. The only difference between the two is basically the amount of results you get. So when you're searching for a category, you're going to get a lot more results than you would if you're searching for a topic. But again, you can click on a category and it functions just like the topic in that you can click on the keyword and it will pull up everything related to that keyword, legislation, committees, Iowa law and rules, what have you. And again, anytime you run a search, those numbers next to each one of these areas here indicate the amount of results it found in each one. And again, clicking on that little arrow in front of anything allows you to expand down and see exactly where it found those particular results. So that may be handy. Pretty much anytime you search for anything on our website, it is going to drop you into this tool. So you may have used it, whether you know it or not. Anytime you hit search, it's going to drop you into this tool. Again, I recommend you get very comfortable using it. It's a really handy tool to use. And while I'm at it, I'm going to just go ahead and close some of these tabs that I was working on earlier so we don't get too full. That was our legislative document research tool. On the main page, most of these are pretty self-explanatory, but I'll hit them pretty quickly. The Iowa Administrative Code, click on that. It pulls up the Iowa Administrative Code. It's always going to default to the most current version. The PDF is the official version now. We do have, once you get to the chapter level, the ability to see it in RTF. Sometimes there are tiny discrepancies between them. We always advise you to look at the PDF as the official version. That doesn't mean if you find something in the RTF that doesn't look right, please do let us know. As you can see, this is a lot of information and it's almost impossible for us to determine if something is off until somebody tells us that it is. So throughout our website, you'll also see a year picker or a GA at the top. It's always going to default to the current one. But that being said, if you use this arrow, you can go back and view the administrative code as it existed at different points in time. I do want to point out that before 2008, this information does look a little different. This is when we basically started keeping all of the information electronically, and so the formatting changed. But anything you see before 2008, you can still view. It's just going to look a little different. So if I go back to 2007, for example, and I click, it's going to look like this. One other thing to point out is it doesn't really work that great with Chrome, unfortunately. If you're doing, going back to the archives and looking at something before 2008, we recommend that you use the browser Firefox. In Firefox, I can click on one of these and it will take me to that section of the administrative code. Unfortunately, Chrome doesn't allow me to do that. It's kind of a tightrope walk we have to do to get everything working in each browser. Yes, Chrome is the one we recommend, but for certain functionality, we recommend Firefox, and this is one of those instances. There's also, let me go back to the current one here. There's also the publication date. As I mentioned, it's going to show you the most current one by default, but you can go back and see previous publication dates by just choosing a different one from the dropdown. When you choose a different publication date, the page contents will adjust accordingly. There is also a link for administrative rules by effective date above the table. And this will again take you back to that page that I showed you when we did the quick find, allow you to type in an agency chapter and or rule and kind of walk through and show you the various content by effective date. And then you click on the chapter to view the chapter. There's a PDF option here to view the PDF file and analysis. If you click on the chapter option, once you get down to the chapter level, you'll notice that I have a PDF option and I also have an RTF option here. Again, that will drop the content into Word for you. I can click on the rules link to view the rule. If there is a waiver, you will see that in the column. If not, you simply won't see that. This takes you to our search waivers and variances page, which I'll talk about here a little bit more when we get to that part. All right, I have to kind of keep navigating around my little share screen at the top here, so I apologize for that. But pretty straightforward. So back on the main page, I can go to the, again, administrative rules by effective date. I've gotten there previously by clicking here. This does the same thing, takes you to that page. This one will allow you to enter terms and will automatically pull up the agency chapter and rule that you typed if you use this method. This one just takes you to the page and lets you choose them from the dropdown. The administrative code index, nothing changed here, same as always, just shows you basically the code by subject. These are able to be clicked on in Chrome, so if you click on one of these, it will take you right to the page in the code index relating to that topic. The administrative bulletin and the Iowa Administrative Code Supplement are here. Again, it's always going to default to the most current one. Again, you can change that by clicking on this little drop down next to the year and go back in time that way. The page will adjust accordingly. There's nothing you have to do after you choose that date to get the page to adjust. You'll see the publication date. Clicking on the PDF will show you the bulletin for that publication date. You'll see a link to any rulemaking documents, any non-rulemaking documents. Click on the show here. This expands down and shows you those. And then you have a link as well to a PDF copy of the Administrative Code Supplement. This is just a really quick thumbnail. Clicking on this just pulls up the current version of the Iowa Administrative Bulletin. So instead of clicking on the other one, you just come in here and it automatically launches the Administrative Bulletin in PDF format. All of the page numbers here are linked as well. So if I click on a page number in the bulletin, it will take me right to that page within the bulletin. And as you know, these get quite long, so that's very handy without having to scroll to page 900 as well. The next one is the comments. This is basically takes you off our website and onto the executive branch. We get questions about this. Unfortunately, we don't really know what they do with these comments. This is an executive branch thing that they do. So if you have questions, you want to direct them to the executive branch with relation to these comments. Executive branch agencies, this is just a list of all the executive branch agencies with their corresponding agency number, nothing too crazy there. Search the administrative rules. That's exactly like clicking on the legislative document research, except it's going to automatically limit your results to the Iowa Administrative Code. I'm not going to click on that because I know they're working on it right now. Search by topic. This is the same as when we were in the legislative document research tool. They can click on that topic and pull up any documents relating to that topic. The rules tracker we've already discussed. One I did want to point out really quickly is this emergency rulemaking documents. These are rulemaking documents filed prior to the publication date, and this is really the only place you can find those on the website. So I do make sure I point those out. There's links here to the ARC, links to the agency. The subject of the rulemaking is written here. There's an agency document. You can pull that up in PDF format, the effective date, and then clicking on this link will also pull up the Iowa Administrative Bulletin. The Iowa departmental rules are here. Clicking on that pulls those up. Nothing too fancy there. And then there's also this by category. If you scroll down further, this is the same category search that we saw again in the legislative document research tool. Again, this basically just limits your results to the Iowa Administrative Code because that's the portion of our website that you're on. So a lot of times you'll see what we call context-sensitive help. Another example of that is up here along the top. What we try to do if you're running a search is to limit your search results based on your location on the website. So if you are on our homepage and you searched, it's going to search everything. Whereas, as you can see, anything I type up here in this search is only going to search the Iowa Administrative Rules. Very quickly here, I'm going to go through the Learn How rules work. This is basically just if you're a newer rule writer and you want more information about the rulemaking process, some educational documents are posted here. Did you want to weigh in or say anything about these, Jack?
Some of this content is a bit outdated. I'm in the process of updating it. Yeah, later this year or next. And includes both the Learn How rules work documents, public state rulemaking guide.
And then throughout, you'll see links to the Iowa Administrative Procedure Act, Chapter 17A. That's just the section of the code that deals with rulemaking. So you'll see links to that throughout over and over. Over here along the left, again, we have just the section dealing with the Administrative Rules Review Committee. Very straightforward, just all the information pertaining to that committee. Looking on committee membership shows you the committee members. There's a link for the agenda, the meeting minutes, the rules digest, fiscal impact. This is where Christine was talking about fiscals component a little earlier. That's that document that they provided the committee that talks about fiscal impact of various rules. And then there's some other ones. The interim calendar shows any meetings that are happening throughout the interim, and then some annual reports here. And then Hannah already touched on all of these rule writer toolkit links from the schedule of rulemaking through the rulemaking calculator, the rulemaking guide, style guide, etc. All of these are out here for your use. There's this additional information and resources as well, some additional information and resources. The table of rules implementing statutes, very straightforward, pull that up. This actually does work a little bit different now. We've changed, it used to be static and now it's kind of dynamic. It allows you to kind of put in the reference type that you want, choose an agency, and then it'll search the statutes that are cited in the administrative rules based on what you've chosen here. By default, as you can see, as I scroll down, it will show me kind of everything. Everything is linked here, so if I want to click on one of these statutory references, it'll pull up in another tab for me. And just that tab. I can see the chapter. I can see the rule by clicking on these various links. And then if I want to download this and see it in Excel, I can simply click the link there and it will drop the content into Excel for me where I can edit it. I can do whatever I want. But this may be useful, and I just wanted to point it out because it has been rewritten in the last couple of years. The search waivers and variances of administrative rules. This, again, looks a little similar. This allows you to choose an agency, pick a date range, do a search phrase or a rule number, and it will go through and search the waivers for you. So that's a question I get quite frequently in RMS. There's a place where you can do waivers and variances, and a lot of times people are wondering if their waivers or variants got submitted. This is a place that you can look and see that. So you can choose your agency here, choose your date range, search the waivers. In this case, of course, I'm going to pull up one that doesn't have any because I have a habit of doing that. But trust me, there we go, found one. If you choose an agency and a date range here, it will pull up those waivers and variances that meet that search criteria. Yes.
I'll note on the regarding waivers and variances, I'm sure most of you are probably aware there was this terminology change. The term variance was eliminated from Chapter 17A. At some point in the near future, we'll get this terminology updated on this 17 as well. Also, there was a new 60-day deadline for submitting waivers once they are granted or denied on here. Yeah, those are some things to be aware of.
Uniform rules on agency procedure, exactly what it says, just shows, and again, this was also on your Rule Writer Toolkits, just another location for this information. Creating links in the Iowa Administrative Code. This is a question we get a lot at the help desk. A lot of times, various agencies have links to a particular administrative code section on the website. This document is mostly for tech support, just shows you how to structure those links so that you're not constantly replacing them. And basically, when you format them this way, just put like bulletin.pdf, it is going to pull up the most current version. Whereas when you structure them with a date in the URL, it's going to pull up that particular date. So again, maybe more for your tech support, but a document I mentioned in case you are linking to administrative code sections on your website. There is a Bills and Rules Watch tool I did want to point out here very quickly. This allows you to create customized bill lists. You can put in code references and create your own collections and essentially be notified via email anytime something happens. So you can subscribe to legislation, rulemakings, code sections, publications. You can do it by topic or category. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because it's easily a 20-minute presentation. But what we have done is if you click on the PDF next to the Bills and Rules Watch link, there are written instructions on using the tool. And then also if you click on this play icon at the top of the page, there is a video on the Bills and Rules Watch application as well. I tried to make it as succinct as possible. Unfortunately, there is a lot of data and a lot of functionality in the tool. So it is about 18 minutes. Still, I recommend a watch. It's very useful. Our lobbyists really love the system. It's great to get notifications on things as opposed to having to go to our website and find out if something has happened. Also on the subscriptions page and some other things to point out, there is an administrative rule changes option here. You can subscribe to your agency, and anytime rulemaking action or publication happens, you'll be notified via email. Very straightforward to subscribe. You simply check the boxes for the ones that you want to receive, enter your email address. This is open to anyone in the public. This can be your work email address. It could be a personal. It's completely up to you. And then prove you're not a robot and answer the questions here provided. At that point, you'll hit the subscribe button. If you're not subscribed at that point, we want to make sure that this is something that you want. Anybody can come in and type in anyone's email address and subscribe you to things. So what's going to happen when you hit subscribe, you're going to get a link in an email message to the email address that you entered asking you to confirm your subscription. Once you click the confirm link, at that point, you'll be signed up to receive these notifications via email. You can come in here and you can change these subscriptions at any time. It's completely up to you. The other one I wanted to point out is the legislative subscriptions option. All of the publications that we post on our website can be subscribed to via email as well. One I always point out for you guys is the administrative bulletin, the administrative code supplement, and then court rules. So if you want to receive updates on these via email, you can do the same thing. Check the boxes for the ones you want. enter your email address, hit the I'm not a robot, answer the question, hit subscribe, and then in your email, click on that confirm link to confirm your subscriptions here. And again, you can change these at any point in time. That's our Bills and Rules Watch. There's also a hyperlink Bills and Amendments template. This allows you to download a tool, essentially a macro that you can use in Word, where you can type in a bill number or code section and it will link it for you automatically. It's something legislative staff has here, and we thought that some other people want to take advantage, so there's information on that here. And then very quick links. I've already showed you how to do this by clicking on subscribe, but this is a very quick way to subscribe to the bulletin and the supplement. Again, just takes you right to that page. And then subscribe to agency rule changes via email, which we already talked about. It's administrative rule changes as well. So if you want to take advantage of that functionality, I definitely recommend you do so. We're going to do a little bit of a change up this year. I know that we've done the same training for several years now, and it's always been well received, but attendance is dwindling a bit, and I think a lot of the reason for that is because we have this ex opus training that we're going to be doing for you this afternoon. We have the website training, but we really haven't had an in-depth RMS training at this point. So I'm going to go through, and I invite Hannah to also chime in here at any point and kind of go through some of the things I see when I support this tool and some of the frequently asked questions I get. This is one entrance into the rules management system. What you'll do is you'll click on this, you'll click on the rules management system link, and you'll sign in with your information. The rule management system user guide is here. This is the documentation for using the tool. I have rewritten this entire document, about 38 pages of fun for you. All of the screenshots have been updated. The process has been updated. The contact information has been updated. We've had some staff changes as well. So this is the most current version of the document. If you have an older version, I recommend you use this one going forward. I think it'll be a lot more useful for you. There's also an FAQ here. So again, it's just some frequently asked questions that we get, as well as the answers for some of these frequently asked questions. There's also on this page, the other thing I wanted to point out is just some contact information. If you have problems or questions signing into the legislative portal, we ask that you contact the help desk. The help desk number is listed here. And then the other question we get a lot of times is somebody will say, I've signed into the portal, I don't see the rule management system link along the left. And that just means that you don't have permissions to the application. You do have to get permissions for your agency to be able to go in and use the rules management system. So if you don't have the permissions needed, we ask that you contact the LSA front office at this number, and they can set you up with those permissions. So 2 different ways to get into the rules management system. Number 1, simply click on the rules management system link on this page. Number 2, and this is for anything in the portal, you can click on applications down here, and you'll sign in with your username and password. Your username will be the email address that you use for your account, and then the password is, of course, whatever you've set it to be. You'll hit the login button. Once you've logged in, you will see, I'm sorry, I have to pull it at the top. I'll close some of these first. Once you log in, you will see over here along the left a link to the rules management system. And this will pull up your agency and show you all of the filings for your particular agency. One other thing to point out over here along the left, again, clicking on the PDF icon in front of the rules management system link will give you the documentation. So again, clicking on that will pull up the written instructions for using this tool. Again, they are new this year and have been updated. So I recommend that you use this new one as opposed to the old one going forward. Stand by, waiting for this little stop shooting to go away again. Well, actually, here's a good point to stop. Were there any questions on anything we've covered so far with the website? Anything you want me to elaborate on or repeat before we move on to the RMS? I'll give you some time to type here. I will take your silence to mean no. So we will move on now to the RMS portion. And let me go ahead. I'm going to go into our test system because I don't want to actually create any rules at this point. So any data you see in here, do not be alarmed. It is all test data. I'm not showing you anything that's going to be a problem. So What it will do is it will pull up this page when you initially enter RMS. Now, if you don't have any filings, this page will look like all of these other tables down here, and it'll simply say no filings for the selected publication date. As with everything else on our website, it is always going to default to the most current publication date for which deadlines have not passed yet. So yes, we haven't actually gone through the November 18th publication. However, the deadline for submitting for that has passed. So it's going to pull up the most current one for which you can still submit rulemakings. Again, there's this year picker along the top, which again will always go to your most current year. Again, if you want to see filings from previous years, you can simply choose a previous year from the dropdown. The page contents will adjust accordingly and allow you to see the filings for that particular year. This box is also checked by default. So again, you're going to see the most current publication date. This is checked by default. And by checking this box, it's also going to get filings from the previous publication date. If you were to uncheck that, it would only show you publications for the one publication date that you've chosen here in the dropdown. Now, if you represent multiple agencies, you will see a dropdown here for agencies. If you do not represent multiple agencies, it will not give you a dropdown, and it will just know the agency that you are with. Again, this is permissions based. So this is something that when you call the front office, you want to let them know if you represent multiple agencies. But this is basically a look at your account at the present time. Let's go ahead and do a filing. To create a new filing, what you'll do is you'll click on this new filing link, which is up here in the upper left, this yellow button. You'll click on that and it's going to pull up your filing here. Now, just for the example, I'm going to do a notice of intended action. Oh, one other thing to point out very quickly, again, there's this little question mark here. Anytime there's a question mark, it will pull up sample documents for you. So if you're unsure of how this should look or how to format it, there's kind of try to put some helpful tips in here. This will pull up RMS filing help documentation, for example. You'll choose your filing type. Again, just for this example, I'm going to pick on notice of intended action. Based on the filing type that you've chosen, again, you'll see that the agency that I had chosen before is going to select, and actually I'm going to choose I'm going to choose the Aid Council here. Whatever agency that you checked, if you represent multiples, when you click on new filing, that is the agency that you will be requesting on behalf of. You can tell that. You will see right here that it says agency, and it will put in whatever agency you're requesting on behalf of. I'm sorry, filing on behalf of. I'm going to choose notice of intended action. Based on the filing type chosen, it's going to fill in the rest of this information. You're going to want to fill in all of the required information. All of the required fields are denoted with this little red asterisk here. If you want to enter additional information that's not required, you're welcome to do so, but all of these required fields have to be filled in before you can submit your filing. There is a box here to check if the notice is a companion rulemaking to adopted and rulemaking emergency filed or double barrel notice. In the instructions that are given, it talks about how if you do a double barrel, how you want to do this. And basically what we advise is that you go in and do a notice of intended action, you check this box, and then you go in after that point and choose the adopted and filed emergency and then kind of connect the two. But I digress. We're going in and just doing a notice of intended action. So I've chosen my filing type. I'm going to put in a rule title. Now this information is going to be used to identify this filing prior to the ARC assignment. So you want to make it something that's specific to the rule that you're doing. Now for my purposes, I'm just going to do a test. So I'm just going to call my rule title test 2. Short name of the agency or rulemaking body. If you want to do that, you can. That is not a required field. Contact person. This would be the person that is going to be contacted if there are questions about this particular filing. This is a question.
Emily, can I chime in here?
Absolutely. Please go ahead, Hannah.
So the field that says shortened name of agency of rulemaking body, that will show up in the preamble. So if you put board, commission, whatever, that will show up. So that's a useful way to shorten the name instead of like transportation department, just say department.
Thank you, Hannah. This next part is a question I get quite frequently at the help desk when people are doing filings. So you're trying to choose a contact, and the contact that you need isn't in this list. What do you do? So the way that you're going to want to do it is I'm in the middle of this, so I'm just going to go ahead and save unfinished filing. You can save your filing at any point. So basically what this is going to do is just save a draft copy. I haven't submitted anything. When I go back to my filings, I can see that test 2 is here. I get a little exclamation point telling me the publication date is not set and the status is in drafting at this point. So I need to go ahead and update the contact to somebody else. What I will do is I will come over here to agency contacts and I will enter in a new contact. By default, it's going to show me all of the active contacts. If I want to see all of the contacts for the particular agency, I can hit that all button. What we've done is we have imported all of the contact people from the previous ART system as well. So we never want to really remove any contacts because we have to use that data for, so what I'm looking for, posterity, we have to use the old data. So we never want to remove a contact that was a contact in the past. What we'll do is we'll mark them as inactive in the system. And that's why you have this little toggle here. Right now, this person, Kevin Stiles, is the only person that I can choose as a contact for the Ag Council. So if I want to add an additional contact, I would click this Add Contact button, and I would enter in the information that I want. So let's say our new person is Jane Doe, and her information is jane.doe@msn.com. The only information, again, that you have to enter for contact is first name, last name, email, and phone. Again, you can see that because it's denoted with that red asterisk. I'm just going to put your phone number here. If you want to enter in any of this additional information, you can do so. There is a second contact further down with the public hearing contact. If you want this person to be a public hearing contact, you would need to put in address information as well. The person needs to have an address and would be selected in that field as the contact. So if you want that person to be in there, you'll want to enter an address as well, but you really only need an email, a name, and a phone number to put this person in. I'm going to go ahead and mark them as saved. And now you can see I have Jane Doe and she is a contact that I can now use. If you want the email to be shown, you simply check the box here. Likewise with phone number and address, you can check those boxes. There's an edit button. If I make a mistake and I want to change the name or I need to change the email, you can hit that edit button to change that. And as you can see, the status right now is active. If I need to mark someone as inactive, I would hit that box and hit confirm. At that point, once they're marked as inactive, I can no longer choose them as a contact. So that, I don't know if that's saved. Yes, it did. Okay, so now I have my Jane Doe as the contact here. Now I'm ready to go back into my filing. So this is the filing I was working on earlier. I'll go back in. I hovered over my action icon. I click on the edit filing button. My test 2 is here, all the information I previously entered. You cannot change the filing type once you save, and that is by design, so that field is grayed out. But now if I go in and choose my contact person, here's Jane Doe, I can choose her, and I can move on to the rest of my form. If you're just doing a draft or you're not quite sure which publication date you're going to submit this for, you can leave this as draft only. If you want to submit this, you absolutely have to choose the publication date. The next 2 publication dates will be listed here. If you were to choose the November 18th, it's going to tell you that the submission deadline for this has already passed. The submission deadline was October 28th at noon. It does give you this little bit of text here that says submission deadline for this date is passed. Continue if you've received approval from the Governor's Office of Publications Editing Office /admin code. So there are exceptions to every rule. We don't disallow you from doing this, but we pop up this notice saying, hey, you might want to be aware that it might not make publication for this. So yes, you want to check with the Governor's Office or PEO to see if this is a possibility and it can be published for this particular publication date. But I'm just going to do what I'm supposed to, which is the next publication date for which the submission deadline has not passed. And it will give you the submission deadline here when you choose the publication date from the dropdown. The designee with rulemaking authority, this is not a required field. Hannah, did you want to say anything about this field?
This, let's see. This is similar where if you check, there's a checkbox at the bottom of the form that you have to click to use this field in the preamble. But this is great for an agency who has multiple entities who might adopt something. So like Labor Services Division has the Electrical Examining Board or the pressure vessel board. And so if you put that designee here, it will say the electrical examining board adopted the rulemaking instead of labor services division adopted it. But you do have to select the checkbox further down the form to activate that.
Thank you, Hannah. The next two ask you to choose the statutory delegation of rulemaking authority and the statute this rule is intended to implement. Now, I'm not a rule writer, so I'm just going to kind of fudge this information, but I want to show you how to enter this properly. So there's a drop down here if you need to choose acts, executive order, federal statute, etc. I'm going to leave the default option chosen. Again, ghosted kind of here in this field, it's going to show you the format that's expected for this information. And if you type in this field, it is going to give you this type ahead predictive text option. You do need to select from this as opposed to just typing it in. You need to select it from the drop down. And then you need to click this plus button to save the reference. You can do multiple references here, but you'll be able to tell that this is saved because it puts in this nice little tan field here, and that denotes what I've chosen. If I need to change that or remove this, I hit that red X, and I can go back and change it or add a different one. I'm going to go ahead and again, just choose that one, hit the plus sign, and I've entered in my chapter and section. This does the same thing. Again, I can choose from the drop down which kind of which kind of legislation I want. Again, the predictive text is here, so I can type in 9.3.1. Again, you need to choose it from the drop down here. You can't just type it, and you also need to hit this plus sign in order to meet that criteria. So now I've met both criteria because you can see those tan fields have been added. The next one is the chapter affected. You'll hit the plus sign here to select the chapter. Depending on the agency that you've chosen, those are the chapters that you're going to see. I've chosen the Ed Council, so I have the 5 chapters for that. There is an option here if you want to choose multiple chapters, hold down your control key and click to follow, to add more than one chapter at one time. You can click on this and add the chapter over here along the right. If there is a new chapter that needs to be added, you can type in the chapter with the title here, and then you can use the right-facing button in order to move that to the selected chapters here. There is no save here. That concerns some people, but what you do is you simply close the box and it goes ahead and puts in the chapter. Again, you can tell because there's this nice little blue box that shows you that the chapters effective have been selected.
Emily, can I chime in again?
Absolutely, please do.
Can you open that interface?
Absolutely.
So you want to make sure to select the right action. Amend is the default, but especially if you're adopting something new, click adopt and then type in the new title and then click the right facing button.
Right. Thank you.
Yep.
I see there's a question in there.
What's the question?
Actually, Nick Belkey just said he had to jump off for another meeting.
Okay.
And then you're just going to follow again the rest of these that are marked with the red asterisks and no requirement. So is this rule mandated by state or federal law? Your answer here. Depending on what you choose, it may put in some or ask for some additional information. I'm just going to choose no here. Again, you follow the same process. You'll put in the information. You'll choose it from the drop down and hit that plus sign in order to select it. The purpose and summary of the rulemaking. Again, I'm not a rulemaker, so I'm just going to put test in both of these fields. You have to type something in these fields to meet that requirement. The reference ARC number is here. This is not a required field, but you can enter that if you wish. Did you have anything you want to say about this, Hannah, or no?
We don't see that field filled in very often. Sometimes boards have joint rulemakings, or if there was a previous related rulemaking you want to put in there, go for it, but we don't really use that field, so it's for your use.
Okay, thank you. Public comment deadline, it is going to fill in based on the publication date that you've chosen. That's not to say that it can't be changed. If I click on this date field, I can come in here and I can choose a different date on the calendar. The public comment contact person. Again, this is what I was talking about earlier when I added the public comment contact person. I have added Jane Doe as a contact, but she does not have an address associated with her contact. So I can't choose her as the person here. I would have to choose Kevin. Again, if I wanted to change that, I could save the filing, go back into agency contacts, enter an address for Jane, and then she would be selectable when I came back into this portion. I'll go ahead and just choose Kevin. When you enter the information for this, it's going to fill in some additional information, some boilerplate text. Anytime it enters boilerplate text, you can type in this. If you need to change how this looks or you want to change the wording, you can absolutely type in there to do that. And then it's going to put in this person's address here as listed in the system. And then you're going to choose, is there a public hearing scheduled? No. Again, you'll put in some boiler text. You can change that if you wish. Does this rule contain a waiver provision? Yes or no. Choose that. It'll put in boiler text that can be edited. Is there an anticipated jobs impact? Yes or no. And then put in the additional information. There is an option here where you can upload a jobs impact explanation. Now, in this case, there's not one required, but again, this is a place where you can upload additional information if you wish. Now, you're not done at this point. There are 3 tabs of information to fill out for benefits.
Before we go to tab 2, can I add something else?
Please do.
So in that waiver provision one, can you make that feel bigger?
Absolutely. Whoops, too big. Okay, well, I can kind of do it. There we go.
Or just, okay. So a lot of agencies include a citation to a rule or a chapter of waivers at the end of the sentence. So if you want that in your preamble, go ahead and add it after that, if any, at the end.
Thank you. So again, to move to the next one, you can either hit the next button down here at the bottom, or you can go through the tabs by just clicking on the tabs up here at the top. So there's also the option here to do the unfinished filing. As I mentioned, you can save this at any point. If you're not quite sure the rest of the information, save it, come back, and enter the information at a later point. Cancel just removes the request. So I saved it. I'm always a saver. So I'm just going to go to the next tab, which is fiscal impact. Again, you choose a contact person here. Again, you can update these contacts if needed by clicking over here in the agency contacts. Oh, one more thing on this tab that I neglected to mention. The public hearing. The public hearing location functions almost exactly like the agency contacts do. So for example, the public hearing is scheduled. In that case, I would need to click to add public hearing details. Now, for the Ed Council, there are no meeting locations that I can choose. So this, just like the agency contacts, I would have to go ahead and save my filing and then go into the public hearing locations. So I'm going to save unfinished filing. I'm going to go over here to my public hearing locations along the left. There is no public hearing location for the Ed Council at this point, so I would add my location. Now, the way this is designed, we have 4 lines for the address. The minimum that you have to do, of course, is a street address in the city that should be supplied. There is space in 3 and 4 if there's like a teleconference or other meeting format. That's what those are used for. But let's just pretend I'm going to use our office, because why not?
Another option, a lot of agencies have been holding hearings only via conference and not in person at all. So you can do, like, some agencies do a Google Meet and then they put in the link and the password, how you can call in. So feel free to throw that information in there too.
Absolutely. Thank you. So just like the agency contacts, I'm going to save it. This has been updated. If I need to edit it, I can use this little edit icon to change that. But now I'll go back to my filing and now I'll be able to choose it from the drop down. So here's the one I've been working on. Let me go back down to the bottom. And where it says click to add public hearing details, now I have the option to choose that location here. You're going to pick a date. You're going to pick a start time. That is the only thing that is required. You don't have to pick an end time because, as we all know, meetings don't always end when they're scheduled to, right? So there's an end time option. You don't have to put that in there. And then there's an if requested checkbox to check. And then this up here, we kind of try to put tooltips throughout the RMS application. So in smaller text, usually there's a tip. So basically this just says exactly what I just did. To add a new location not currently available, cancel this dialog, save the unfinished filing, select public hearings from the navigation pane, add it, come back to the filing and select it from the dropdown. So I'll say add, and now I've gone ahead and put this public hearing location in. Next. Fiscal impact. This is mostly what Christine was talking about earlier. Again, you're going to choose the contact person. These are the same contact people that you can choose on the first tab. You don't need an address for these, so both contacts can be chosen. Impact criteria, you'll just select the radio button for that criteria. Some of these will change your form slightly. If there's no fiscal impact, the explanation field will fill in with some boilerplate text that you can update if you wish. And then the last option, this impact of $100,000 or more annually or $500,000 or more over 5 years. This gives you an additional requirement here that asks you to upload an explanation. This field is not required unless you choose that option for fiscal impact. You can see that the star goes away unless I've chosen this option here. Legislation, appropriation associated with rulemaking. Again, Christine briefly touched on this. This is where you'll come in and choose any legislation relating to this particular filing. Right now, we do have the default set to the 89th because our bill management system has been opened up for the next General Assembly. People are already requesting bills. So that is the most current right now. So to get this to work, I'm going to go back to the 88th, for which there are actually bills. Again, and I don't think this is super intuitive, you're going to have to type in the legislation, and then instead of just typing it, you do have to choose it here from the dropdown in order for that field to fill in and meet that requirement. So just make sure that you're choosing it from the dropdown as opposed to just typing it in. And then I'm going to go to my last tab. And the first thing you're going to be able to do is to view the preamble. Preamble is going to generate based on all of the information that you've entered on the previous tabs. So you can take a look at this in PDF format. And when you are finished, there's no save or anything. You just close it. It allows you to view that. There is an optional upload supporting document attachments here. This is designed really to give any additional information. So for example, when we do the ex opus training this afternoon, it doesn't really support images that well. So what we're going to tell you to do is to come in here and upload any tables that you have and kind of then put an explanation for that particular attachment saying where you'd want it in the filing. Is there anything else you want to mention about that, Hannah?
RMS does not handle tables very well. So if you have a table you want to put in your preamble, please attach it and we will include it during editing.
Thank you. This next section, most of you don't see right now because we haven't launched it yet. This is I'm trying to get away from calling it ex opus. That's the tool that we use. It's called the drafting environment. This is where you can come in and actually start drafting within this application. And we'll talk about that, of course, when you come to the ex opus training, which I definitely recommend you do. This is going to be kind of the wave of the future. We're not taking anything away from you or forcing you to use it at this point, but we are kind of trying to transition, and this will be the standard going forward. So this is a tool I definitely recommend you become used to using. Right now, I'm not going to cover that, but you go in and hit create, and then you can start drafting using that tool. Right now, what you see is this upload rule changes. This does need to be filled in. You need to upload a rule change document. They do ask that you upload a Word document and that track changes is not enabled. It does say that in the red text here. There is also additional text. Once we launch this drafting tool, there's text that says you do not need to upload a rule change document if you've used the drafting environment. So this will not be a requirement if you use the other option, but right now it is. So I'll just choose a file, hit open. It puts in the name of my file here. I can preview the file if I wish. Only one document is allowed here. So if I were to, oh, I didn't mean to update, or I didn't need to upload this document, you choose file again, choose the file that you want, hit open, and it will overwrite that other document. So if you make a mistake, just upload the one on top of it, and it will replace the one that you originally uploaded. There's a comment to editors field here. This isn't required, but this is a great place where you can say to the editor any changes or anything special about this filing that you want before you submit it. And
So
then
that's sorry.
No, go ahead.
That's things like, for example, if you have a board or some other entity that adopts and RMS doesn't allow for you to put that in, like the State Board of Health, for example, this is where you can tell editors a specific piece of information that needs to be put in that RMS can't account for. And we always check this when editing.
Thank you. And then the big question that we get, okay, I'm done and I've entered all the information. Why can't I click the checkbox to submit this? Little tricky. You'll want to save the unfinished filing first. You go back to that tab, and now you can see that I can check the box. Once you check the box, the submit filing button lights up. So you always want to make sure that you've saved it. Also, if you go back to one of the previous tabs and make a change, you're going to want to view that preamble again. You need to regenerate the preamble because the system doesn't always know that you've made a change. So obviously the preamble that it generates, and you go back and make a change, now that preamble is out of date. So you want to make sure that you always hit that view preamble PDF to update the content. And again, you want to make sure that you hit save unfinished filing. At that point, the checkbox becomes selectable. Once you check the box, you can hit the submit filing button. Once you submit the filing, you'll get a lovely little success message saying that your filing has been submitted. And if you go back to your My Filings page, you can see that in this case, it's a notice of intended action. So it goes to the governor's office for pre-clearance. You can see that now my filing has gone down to the governor's office table and is no longer in the My Filings table. And at that point, it's the governor's office responsibility to move that forward. There is also instructions on how to withdraw a filing up here. That's another question we get quite frequently. And if you click that, it'll just take you to that section of the document that deals with withdrawing filings. As I mentioned, once you submit a filing, it actually goes to ACO or the governor's office, depending on the type of filing. So you can't actually withdraw it until they return it to you. So what you want to do is contact the governor's office or PEO and tell them that you want to withdraw the filing. They'll send it back to you, and then you can withdraw the filing in RMS. And then there are some additional options over here along the left, of course. The filings, this is how you do most of your information. There's the non-rulemaking submissions option here. This is another permission in RMS where you can come in and do non-rulemakings. Again, the most current publication date will be chosen. You can change that using the drop down here. If you represent multiple agencies, again, you'll choose the agency for the submission that you want. If you don't represent multiple agencies, the system will know what agency that you represent, and there'll be no need to choose it from the drop down. But you'll click on new submission. And again, just go through and enter in the required information. So it's going to fill in the agency for you. You'll choose the publication date. You'll choose the submission type here. You'll choose the submission title. You'll choose the contact person. Again, if you need to change the contact person, you'll go over to agency contacts and make that change. And then there's some additional information here, statutory requirement of publication. Same as on the other one, you'll want to choose it. You'll want to type it, choose it from the drop down, hit that plus icon to add it to that field, upload, comments. And again, when you're finished, you'll check that box to submit it for publication. As with anything, you can always save an unfinished draft. Now, in this case, it's not going to do it because I actually have to put in a title before it's going to do it. So let me do that. But you can always save an unfinished draft and go back and work with it again at a later time. So that's your non-rulemaking submissions. Waivers and variances, similar. This is another permission in RMS. So we've kind of granulated permissions. It used to be that pretty much everybody could do everything. Now we have certain people, we realize that the agencies that do the waivers and certain people that do the rulemakings and certain people that draft the rulemakings. So we have like kind of slimmed down permissions. There is the ability here, if you click on waivers and variances, it's going to show you all of the waivers and variances for the agency that you chose. Again, you have some filters up here. It'll show you the last few months. If you want to change the date range, you can do that. You can put in a search phrase or a rule number and search the waivers that way. In this case, there is no waivers or variance records for the Ed Council, so I'm not going to mess with the search too much. There is an overview of waivers and variances on here. And in this case, we don't have anything right now. But from previous, it's because I'm in test. That's why. If I was in prod, you'd be able to see the information. But there's a new waiver variance here. Again, person I've signed in as represents multiple agencies, so I would choose the agency that I wanted here from the dropdown. And again, I would go through and fill out the information requested. So the agency reference number is here. This is basically the number of the agency. If you have a secondary agency reference, you can click on this and add that number. You'll choose a chapter here. There's statutory provisions implemented by the rule. That's not required. Put in a rule reference, sub-rule, paragraph or subpart. You'll choose the the status of the waiver, the request date. Date of disposition is not required, but you can enter that if you wish. The topic, based on what you choose up here, if you enter in a rule reference, the topic, what you can see will fill in for you. So I entered in my rule reference, the topic fills in for me based on that rule reference that I entered. I would upload my summary or rationale here. If I upload a document here, this removes the requirement for these next few fields. So as you can see, I now can no longer click in these. If I upload the summary, it takes away the requirement for these two fields. If I didn't, I would have to fill in these two fields. And then there's just some additional text that you can fill in. When you're finished, you hit that save waiver, and it goes ahead and saves the waiver here. You can do that on the waivers page or on the overview waivers page as well. There's also options here to export this data into Excel or into a PDF file. So up to you if you want to see that in different ways. Choose those little icons there. All of this is in the documentation as well. So I'm just kind of giving you a brief overview. The rulemaking calculator is here. This drops you into the page on our website that does the same thing. So it's not that this is a different tool by any means. It's just a quick access, easy way to get to it by clicking in it over here in the RMS navigation. The rules tracker is here as well. So I can click on that and get to the rules tracker to see the progress of the rule from the notice of intended action through publication. Rulemaking records, clicking on this gives you a another way to search for your rulemaking records. You can put in the agency, keyword, arc, or chapter and view that content. All of these are links. You can click on these to view the content. Rules referencing statutes, again, going to drop you onto our page on the website. It allows you to choose an agency or chapter and see all of those rules. Public hearing locations and agency contacts, we already talked about. This is where you can add, remove, or mark inactive any public hearing locations or agency contacts for your agency. The rule writer training video, this is where we will post this year's new training video. Right now, last year's is posted, so if you click on that, it'll launch our training video from last year. And then lastly, our document annotation tool. This is still in development. We're working on it right now, so yes, you can see it, but we're not really gonna talk too much about it because we have several updates and it's kind of coming soon. So I've inundated you with information for 2 hours. Are there any questions that you have that you can think of at this point? It doesn't look like it. My assistant's shaking his head. Okay, so in that case, thank you all for coming. Very much appreciate your time. We will video each one of these recordings. So we have the RMS training this week and another next week. We'll decide which one is the better video and we will edit it and post it. I will send out an email letting you know that the new video has been posted. Again, all the documentation that you can access on the site has been updated. So you can use that now. And we will, oh, that's the last thing. We will send you handouts, all of the handouts from fiscal as well as myself. Any handouts that anyone wants you guys to have, we'll send those to you via email after class, probably around 3 o'clock this afternoon after my next training. Definitely recommend you attend an Exo Opus training. We'll be doing one this afternoon, and then I think we have 4 or 5 more after that in the next 2 weeks. So coming soon. Thank you all so much. Have a great afternoon if we don't see ya. Bye-bye.
Bye, Emily.
Bye.